Hezbollah has carried out a series of overnight strikes on Israeli targets. The group says it targeted the Glilot military base near Tel Aviv, which houses the Mossad headquarters, Israel's intelligence agency. Hezbollah also launched a number of missiles early on Monday. The Israeli army says about 190 rockets were fired at the port city of Haifa, penetrating the Iron Dome defense system. Meanwhile, in the southern suburb of Beirut, Israeli forces have carried out more airstrikes on what they say was Hezbollah's intelligence headquarters. They say one of the group's commanders was killed in the attack. Israeli officials issued a warning on social media ahead of the strike, calling for the evacuation of 2 buildings in Dahya. Israeli authorities have been ordering more forced displacements in southern Lebanon as well, urging residents to leave all the beaches and areas near the Awali River. The evacuation zone extends south from the river source to the Israeli border. This directive effectively isolates approximately 25% of Lebanon's coastline, impacting over 1 million people in that region. OK, we've got correspondents covering all the latest developments of the story across the region. We'll be in Beirut and in Amman shortly. Let's begin in southern Lebanon, where Imran Khan is standing by in Hasbaya. Imran, so I'll ask you about the south in a moment, but first, can you bring us up to date with the latest strikes in Beirut?
That's right. Early in the morning, we heard 2 drone strikes had taken place in the southern suburbs. But before that, a massive airstrike had taken place in the early hours of the morning. Now, there is a name circulating in Israeli media of a Hezbollah commander that was the target of that raid. But Hezbollah haven't confirmed that. They have confirmed that overnight after that attack on Tel Aviv, that 6 more attacks took place from around midnight all the way down until 6 a.m. in the morning. So Hezbollah very much still able to fire rockets into Israeli territory. But we don't know who the target of the Beirut attack was. We do know that the southern suburbs have been coming under increased Israeli airstrikes over the last few days. And it's a dire situation for those people who are left behind. And the people that are left behind are amongst some of the most vulnerable. They're the people that don't have anywhere else to go.
And a massive evacuation order by the Israeli military in the south. What sort of impact is that likely to have?
It's going to have a huge impact. This is a bigger chunk of geographical land than we've seen before. Now, when we saw the evacuation orders come from the ground invasion, they came almost every single day. We're looking at about 130 small towns and villages right now, but this adds to the just geographical side. It's almost like the entire coastline. Now, that's going to have an impact on people leaving. Remember, there's an acute and ongoing displacement crisis right now. Nearly 1.5 million people are on the move. A lot of them are just sleeping rough wherever they can. But there is a decision-making process that goes on for those people that are affected, because you've got to be able to have the funding to be able to leave. You're going to lose your livelihood, so you need some savings. That is, given the financial crisis in Lebanon, that's very difficult for people. The roads are becoming very dangerous. Israel keeps striking the roads. So are you going to put your family into a car and then drive along a road that might have an airstrike? And when you get to where you're going, where are you going that doesn't have Israeli airstrikes? Sidon has Israeli airstrikes. Tyre has Israeli airstrikes. Beirut has Israeli airstrikes. So that's the decision-making that people are forced with now. And there's no diplomatic end in sight for this. Israel keeps putting up the pressure and keeping up those airstrikes.
OK, many thanks for that. Imran Khan there for us in Hasbaya in southern Lebanon. Well, let's find out what the latest diplomatic situation is. We can go to Zaina Khoda. She is in Beirut for us. Zaina, so Imran bringing us up to date there with the latest strikes. I just wonder, where are we when it comes to bringing an end to this diplomatically? Where is the international community on this? What is being done to mediate and end this war?
Well, there doesn't appear to be a window for diplomacy, at least for the time being. Lebanon's Prime Minister Najib Mikati expressing really a lot of frustration yesterday. He said that since the U.S. and French proposal was put on the table, a proposal that called for a 21-day truce to allow for broader negotiations, not one of the countries that supported this proposal are trying to revive the deal. Lebanon accepted the proposal, and to a certain extent, Hezbollah as well. Israel rejected that proposal. And so the feeling here is that Israel wants much more. What is being offered from Lebanon, and these are officials who are allied with Hezbollah, what they are offering is a ceasefire, the implementation of UN Resolution 1701, which calls for a strengthened presence of the Lebanese army along the border and Hezbollah pulling back. And they're also, calling for basically an end to the crisis. But Israel, it seems, wants much more. They want the disarming of Hezbollah. If you talk to officials who are close to Hezbollah, they are saying that this is out of the question. This is out of the equation, that they will not agree to disarm Hezbollah, at least not under fire. So the feeling here is that Western nations are trying to put more pressure on those who are in power for Hezbollah to make more concessions. But the message really here is, do not try to exploit a weakened group, or at least a group which is perceived to be weakened, both militarily and politically. So there's also this internal crisis in Lebanon. And the feeling here is that you're going to have much more military pressure. And there's also a fear that Hezbollah has lost deterrence. And the only way that it can have leverage to enter into negotiations is that it will have to try to shift the balance of power. And they're hoping to do that in possible ground fighting.
Meanwhile, it is, as always, the ordinary people, the Lebanese people that are bearing the brunt of this. We heard Imran talk a little bit about the humanitarian situation. We know many of the displaced people have made their way to Beirut and resources are scarce. I understand aid is coming in from Qatar today. What can you tell us about how the country is coping?
Yes, aid arriving from Qatar a few days ago, from Jordan. So a number of countries have been, supplying necessary essentials, really, to help the Lebanese government deal with this crisis. This is a nearly bankrupt state, and it is an impoverished society. Back in 2006, people had savings in the banks. Since the economic collapse 4 or 5 years ago, these people, have lost almost everything. We've been talking to people in the street. They're asking for shelter. They have nowhere to go. The rainy season is around the corner. Where are they going to go? United Nations officials really expressing a lot of concern. They're saying that the needs are enormous, and if this continues, they're going to need much more support. So aid is still coming in. Israel has imposed an unofficial military blockade on Lebanon, preventing the airport from being used by really Hezbollah, saying or threatening to target any plane that they believe is hostile. But still, the airport is still being used for civilian purposes and humanitarian purposes. Back in 2006, it was a different situation. The airport was bombed. It was not operational. Israel blocked seaports. So that really put a lot of pressure on Lebanon. And the fear here is that this could happen in the weeks and months ahead if Israel does not get the concessions that it is demanding.
Okay, thank you for that. And Zaina Khoda there for us in Beirut. Let's speak now to Mohammed Jamjoon. He's in Jordan's capital, Amman, because the Israeli government has banned Al Jazeera from reporting inside Israel. So, Mohammed, Hezbollah has launched a series of overnight attacks on Israeli targets. Talk us through those latest strikes. What damage have they done?
So, Marlene, let's first talk about the most recent statement from the Israeli army regarding rockets launched by Hezbollah towards northern Israel, in the past day. The statement says that 190 rockets were launched by Lebanon, by Hezbollah rather, towards most targets in northern Israel. And that's really causing concern amongst a lot of Israelis at a time like this when the country is under heightened alert. You saw just a day and a half ago that there were 5 rockets that landed in central Haifa. Of course, that's of great concern because Haifa isn't just a strategic city, the largest city in the north of the country, a port city. 300,000 people live there, but also there are military bases in Haifa. So a lot of Israelis were questioning, what does this mean going forward if at a time like this, 5 rockets could land in central Haifa, and wondering about the potential vulnerabilities even amongst the much vaunted Israeli air defense systems. You have this happening at a time of heightened alert, people very concerned about what this means. But also now we're hearing from the Israelis about more closed military zones being created on Israel's border with Lebanon. And that really just indicates that Israel, as they've been saying in their statements, really intends to continue ramping up pressure on Hezbollah, that they are going to continue to escalate the situation and try to send in more Israeli troops into Lebanon. To that end, there was also a statement from the Israeli army just in the past hour announcing that a 4th division, a 4th military division, the 146th Reserve Division, has been deployed along the border, and that in the past several hours that there was an operation that was conducted by this division that has joined 3 other divisions, that it went into Lebanon and that it was trying to dismantle Hezbollah infrastructure. So all of this really indicating that Israel is going to continue to escalate the situation, that they are going to continue most likely to send more troops and more divisions to Israel's border with Lebanon, that we anticipate that we'll be hearing about more operations, even though the Israelis continue to say that these are limited ground operations, limited in scope. But we anticipate that all of this is pointing to the fact that Israel will be sending more troops along the border and sending more troops into Lebanon in the days to come. Malin?
Okay, thank you for that, Mohammed Jamjoon, there for us in Jordan's capital, Amman.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.